with not that long, within a few days, the bit of ice that they're on breaks up smaller and smaller until they're on a piece. They realise they're on a piece of ice that's just a few football pitch sized bit of ice, and they realise that it's not long. Could be any day. It could be any minute that it starts breaking up entirely. And so their thinking is that you want to get in the lifeboats at the last moment. You want as little time as possible in these boats. So they did leave it until it's sort of, they can't leave it any longer. In fact, there's one little anecdote where one of them is asleep and the ice is on, breaks up under him while he's asleep, and he just about rolls out of the way in time. Yeah. So it's sort of quite cinematic, really, some of these bits, that it's like in a film. Again, the made-for-TV thing with Kenneth Branagh, who plays Shackleton, is very good. I remember watching it when it came out quite a few years ago now. That is good. If you're interested in this, check that out, find that. So in the end, they have to jump in these three ships. Boats. Lifeboats.
That's optimistic, yeah.
Yeah, boats, lifeboats.
So what happens to the dogs here? Can they fit the dog?
Oh,
in the
dogs
boats?
are all killed before then. Right. They can't take any dogs with them.
Yeah, I didn't think they'd be.
No, yeah. Everything now is purely survival because they have to. There's only a finite amount of stuff they can put in these tiny boats along with themselves, and so they've taken water, lots of water, rations, and then a few other really, really key things like a sextant. Yeah. And a few other bits and bobs. At one point they do mention that there's a couple of books. They've got a couple of books. But other than that, there's like no luxuries whatsoever. They can't take dogs. No. All the dogs are killed.
Yeah, well, I was wondering, but yeah. Okay, well,
so they had to shoot all the dogs.
Okay.
Okay, so they're out on the open sea in these tiny little rowboats. And it doesn't look good for them.
Not ideal.
So Shackleton is the leader, has to make a decision. What are we going to do here? They've got oars, so they can try and row against the ocean a bit, but of course that uses not easy. It uses tons of energy. Yeah. So you've basically got to go with the ocean. The waters go round the Antarctic,
right?
And to try and row against that's not going to happen. So you've got to go with it. So the ocean is going to take them back up into the South Atlantic. So they know that's where they're heading. There's no way to stop that.
Do you want to go to the South Atlantic in a rowboat? No. Why would I want this?
Yeah. Packed full of men.
Yeah.
Right on the limit of what you can handle, let alone you're in the South Atlantic.
You can't lay down and have a nap,
So they decide they're going to head for Deception Island, which is a tiny little more than a seamount, really. It's not really, it's a full island, but it's not like, there's no mountains on it or anything. It's just about poking out of the sea. It's a tiny little windswept, completely desolate.
Right.
Like the moon, almost. Deception Island. And it's a few hundred miles away.
Great.
So they head for that. And it's sort of like, it's better than being lost at sea.
I guess, yeah.
But exactly, only a bit though. Yeah. It's still not great. You're not out of the woods remotely.
Yeah.
So, and remarkably, they because they're great navigators. Yeah. Remarkably, they get to Deception Island, but then the winds won't let them land, and they can't land there. Yeah, just the way the ocean reacts around a landmass. It's quite difficult to land on an island like that. Even if you try and crash land it, essentially, they can't do it with the best will in the world.
How annoying that must have been.
Yeah. And they can use a sextant to take their position even during the day. Someone I can't remember who it was, but somebody in the comments last time said, what you do, you use the sun at noon. It has to be perfectly noon, I think.
Right.
But again, I don't understand how, but when it's noon, you can use a sextant to work out at least your longitude, I think it is, or latitude. I can't remember, one of the other.
Yeah, I have no idea how it
anyway,
works.
Anyway, you can do it.
Right.
And Worsley is a master of it.
Right.
Again, later, scholars and historians and other old sea dogs say that was incredible that you were able to take accurate sightings.
It sounds incredible to me, and I don't know anything about it.
They call it taking angles, to take angles with a sextant on a massive roiling sea.
Yeah.
is incredible, really accurate ones anyway.
Yeah.
And he does. They're like sort of perfectly accurate. And it's mostly, well, the only way they know where to go and what to do is by a mixture of dead reckoning, which is guesswork. That's what that is. Dead reckoning is guesswork. And the odd angle that Worsley's able to take. Literally like a handful of them the whole time. And they're like, there's days, what is it, like 14 days, 16 days? They're in these little lifeboats, something like that.
It's crazy. How are they sleeping? I mean, like
hardly any
hunched out,
sleep.
Yeah.
No, hardly any sleep.
Yeah.
And you're constantly wet as well, almost constantly wet from sea spray or just snow.
Yeah.
Because there's blizzards out at sea constantly almost.
There's no shelter from the elements. So,
Yeah. So there's wind. Yeah, it's blowing gales most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. How they don't die of hypothermia, I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's mad.
Yeah.
At one point, Worsley again, because they make Worsley head of one of the ships.
Yeah.
The Stankham Wills, I think, he's in charge of, where he's sitting at the back on the tiller, or is it the rudder? Sitting at the back, steering it, sitting there. A couple of times, he can't stand up. He's like frozen in place. And they have to like bodily pick him up and put him in the middle of the boat and physically stretch him out again and like rub him all over just to warm him up a bit because he's like completely frozen in place.
Yeah.
With the best will in the world, he can't get out of that position.
Yeah.
It's almost comical if it wasn't so sort of sad, I suppose, or bad in a way. So they try for Deception Island, can't make it. So there's a few more islands they try and head for in the direction that the ocean's taking them.
Yeah.
And they can't land on anyone. And the very last one is a little island called Elephant Island.
Right.
Again, a bit more than a seamount, but not much more. Completely desolate, no vegetation to speak of. But it is a little bit bigger. Like there's a small glacier on Elephant Island, for example. But if they can't hit Elephant Island, then that's it. They will go out into the Atlantic, and there's no hope really of ever being found or ever making land again. Yeah. I mean, if they weren't capsized and truly lost at sea, eventually the currents might take them round to South America or the Caribbean, but they haven't got enough provisions or water in their boats to last that long. Yeah. So if they can't hit Elephant Island, they're truly done. Yeah. But they manage to land on Elephant Island just about. And Elephant Island, I'll put pictures up, is, I mean, desolate doesn't really cover it. Right. It's like, it's horrible. And particularly the weather on Elephant Island, where it's like at the end of a string of islands, it's sort of kind of constantly gale and blizzard conditions, sort of constantly.
Oh, brilliant.
So even for the South Atlantic / Antarctica area, it's particularly unforgiving. Because like we said, like on Antarctica, sometimes in the summer anyway, sometimes there'll be no clouds and no wind and the sun will come out. Yeah. Sometimes. Well, in the local climates around somewhere like Elephant Island, you never even get that. It's just as violent as the weather can be.
Okay, well that doesn't, I mean, technically it's an upgrade from their situation, but I mean, if there's nothing there and the weather's awful.
Yeah, it's just still ever so slightly better than being lost at sea.
Yeah, at least they're not going to be capsized.
Yeah. At least you know you're not going to, you probably won't drown. Well, you won't drown.
No, you'll just freeze to death.
But yeah. You'll
starve.
You'll have a different death.
Yeah.
Rather than drowning.
How optimistic?
At one point, just say before they hit Elephant Island, they get separated from the Dudley Docker at one point. Oh no, sorry, they're not out there for 16 days. That's something else a bit later I mentioned. But they're out there for more like 4 or 5 days.
Right.
But still, nonetheless, well over 100 hours. Well over 100 hours it is. And Worsley is in charge of the Dudley Docker, and they get separated at another point. But he is a great, great sailor, navigator. Yeah. So where Shackleton thinks, well, they're lost. We've lost sight of them. They're effectively lost the likelihood of them catching up to us or us meeting again. And Shackleton's distraught. But Worsley does turn up the next day on the same little beach. Yeah. So they find it really hard to land on Elephant Island because most of Elephant Island is just cliffs. It's sort of almost sheer cliffs coming out of the sea, or sheer glaciers that are emptying into the sea. There's nowhere to land. There's no beach or anything. There's not like a nice, gentle incline that you can go up. But luckily, no one had ever been to Elephant Island before. No men have ever stood on it, I don't think, before then. I mean, even now, there's no whaling stage. There's no, to this day on Elephant Island, there's no sort of nothing permanent there. There's no reason to.
Yeah.
There's no point to it. So, but luckily they keep going round it and they find a little beach, tiny little beach, they call it, but it's just a shelf.
Yeah.
And so they manage to sort of essentially crash land their ships on that. And they're sort of overwhelmed with joy. Some men are like picking up the pebbles and the shell and letting it drip through their hands like there's diamonds or whatever. And they can't believe, and they're like, well, yeah, you're sort of saved from immediate death, because it would have only been another day or two or something like that out on the sea before they would be dying with the best will in the world. So, but they also realise very quickly that they can't stay there, because they notice, Shackleton and some of the old hands noticed, that the high water mark it's only a little tiny beach with cliffs at the back of the beach. And they realise that the high water mark is up the cliffs.
Yeah.
So they realise that if the winds and the tides, which they don't know in detail, if the winds and the tides change, they could be swept out to sea at any moment. Yeah. Shackleton makes a decision not to tell the rest of them that he's realised that for one day, for one night. Let them rest and sleep on solid land for one day, but they're going to have to push out again on their little boats. Little paragraph here, he says, a curious spectacle met my eyes when I landed the second time. Some of the men were reeling about the beach as if they had found an unlimited supply of alcoholic liquor on the desolate shore. They were laughing uproariously, picking up stones and letting handfuls of pebbles trickle between their fingers, like misers gloating over hoarded gold. The smiles and laughter which caused crackled lips to bleed afresh, and the gleeful exclamations at the sight of 2 live seals on the beach, food and fuel for their blubber, made me think for a moment of that glittering hour of childhood when the door is open at last and the Christmas tree in all its wonder bursts upon the vision. I wonder what Wild, the man Wild in charge of one of the other ships, I think the Stank and Wills. I remember that Wild, who always rose superior to fortune, bad and good, came ashore as I was looking at the men and stood beside me as easy and unconcerned as if he had stepped out of his car for a stroll in the park. So I like that. That's very sort of a stiff upper lip thing. Yeah. Just pretending, really, putting a brave face in it, pretending everything's cool. Although,
well, we found a bit of land and there are 2 seals here, so you know what? This is great.
Yeah.
This is a marked improvement.
Yeah, I think that bit when they're lost at sea is between the endurance, between the endurance going down and the pack ice that they're on breaking up, and then hitting Elephant Island. That would have been, I think, psychologically the most damaging thing, you know.
I just can't imagine what it would be like to be adrift in the South Atlantic in the middle of the night on a rowboat. Like, that can't be in any way pleasant. Like, it's just like hell on earth. Yeah. And then it's like, and now you've got another 5 nights of this or 4 nights of this. Just because, I mean, the night must just feel like it's lasting forever. Yeah. And then when the dawn comes, like, great, it's dawn again. I can finally see. And what can I see? Oh, just, you know, grey, black waves everywhere. And this is constant pain. Because, like he says, the cracked lips and this, you know, constant, you know, wind and just awful environment. Like,
I think despair is a fair word.
You think it'd be fair to feel despair in this?
Be despair, and you're dying of exposure, basically. Even if you're not dying of hypothermia quickly, you are still dying of exposure. They say also, if you're constantly drenched in seawater and you've got no respite from it, with the salt in the seawater, eventually is like an abrasive. Yeah,
it blisters.
And your clothes blister you up. Yeah. Your own clothes blister you up, and there's no way to avoid it.
Yeah,
you just got to deal with it.
Yeah, it sounds awful.
Yeah, absolutely. That first little beach they land on, he describes it as a particularly disreputable gypsy camp. He thinks that's what it looks like. But they do have to move.
Yeah.
But sort of, again, the blind optimism comes into it.
Yeah.
And they do move, and it's a sort of a very, very dangerous thing, life and death thing, to head out into the seas at all, really. But they do, and they go around. They send one of the ships, one of the tiny boats, to sort of
ships.
Yeah. It's not a ship; it's a boat. People that are naval people,
will be very aware.
You have to make understand the difference between a boat and a ship. These are boats. They sort of reconnoiter up the coast a bit to see if there's, because they can't see if there's anywhere they could land. They don't know if there is another place on Elephant Island where you can. So they send a guy that's about 7 or 8 miles up the coast, and he does find another little shelf, another little island. They just call it a shelf. It's like a penguin rookery. So it's a tiny slither, a tiny spit of land, but it is above the high water mark because the penguins have been using it as a rookery. So they realise, well, that is at least, it's still a really terrible place to try and pitch a camp.
Well, it's better than where you are.
It's better than where you are.
Gotta go.
So they come back, and they all head out to do that. They do have to move. So I wanted to read a little bit here about sort of the optimism. He says, Shackleton wrote, once they get to this new beach, the penguin rookery, he wrote, quote, "But some of the larger rocks provided a measure of shelter from the wind, and as we clustered around the blubber stove with the acrid smoke blowing into our faces, we were quite a cheerful company." Incredible. I mean, makes my heart swell.
Could have been worse. Could have been worse.
Yeah. Bear that in mind.
Yeah.
However bad your situation is, it could be worse.
Yeah, even these guys trapped on Elephant Island, they realise it could be worse than this.
He says, "After all, another stage of the homeward journey had been accomplished, and we could afford to forget for an hour the problems of the future. Life was not so bad. We ate our evening meal while the snow drifted down from the surface of the glacier." They're right next to a glacier, literally.
Oh, really?
Directly next to a glacier. And our chilled bodies grew warm. Then we dried a little tobacco at the stove and enjoyed our pipes before we crawled into our tents. So again, it's like the tiny little victories.
Like dead
there. Yeah.
Like 4 days or 5 days on these little boats. They just slept like the absolute dead. Yeah.
You would be absolutely dead tired, truly exhausted. Yeah, right near the point of death from exhaustion.
Yeah.
Some are stronger than others. 1 or 2 of them by this point. One of them has got quite bad frostbite in one of his. It's surprising it's only one of them. One of them's got real bad frostbite in his feet. Blackborough, his name is Pierce Blackborough. Poor dude. And he's like agony. He's invalided with it. He can't really help. He sort of has to stay where he is. He can't walk on it at all.
Yeah.
But considering he's the only one that's truly injured, it's amazing, really. And so they have to decide what they're going to do next.
Just as a quick side, are these people wearing better clothes than Scott wore?
Nope. Exactly the same sort of stuff. Exactly the same sort of stuff.
Fair enough.
There's pictures of Tom Crean from earlier expeditions, and this expedition is exactly the same.
Right. Okay.
And so they've got a stove, a blubber stove, and there are near-ish so they can melt down fresh water from the glacier.
Yeah.
So water isn't too much of a problem, and they can. There's penguins and seals they can get at least for a while. When the months tick by and the seasons change, the seals naturally go somewhere else. They're only there for a certain part of the year, and so every single penguin they can capture becomes important. But at least at first, they've got a fair bit of seal meat and blubber, and they try and hoard it.
Yeah,
and there's always penguins. Well, not always, but some penguins and stuff. So, and they say they were down to their last, literally their last sachet of like Bovril. They had nothing left. They were right on the edge of having nothing when they landed on Elephant Island. So again, unbelievable. The margins, the difference between completely losing and not was razor thin. But Sir Ernest realizes that we're still not. We're stranded on Elephant Island.
Great.
No, no one knows we're here. No one is going to come and save us. No one would ever go to Elephant Island. Even to this day, no one goes to Elephant Island.
Yeah, what would be the point?
Yeah, there's no point. There's literally no point. So we're stranded on Elephant Island, and we may be able to eke out life here a bit, but not indefinitely.
No.
So we've still got to do something.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.